Hey guys, Kevin from The Forge here. Wanting to catch you up on what happened at The Forge last night. We continued our trip through the book of Joshua, the making of a man, the conquest of the land, and we came to chapter 12 last night, which is kind of a chapter of summation in the book of Joshua. And what we see here is kind of the conclusion to the major military offensives in the land. And they've conquered the major portions, the major territories of the land. They began by crossing over the Jordan, having victories in the central portion of the land. That's where we saw them win at Jericho and Ai and some of those areas. Then they moved down, they had a southern campaign and had victories there. And then in Joshua chapter 11, we saw the northern kings defeated. And then at the end of chapter 11, it makes this statement that then the land had rest from war. And so, again, it's kind of the wrapping up of the major battles for the promised land. Now, that doesn't mean that there weren't still battles to fight and people to defeat and so forth. There was, and we'll see that coming up in Joshua, but the major campaigns have been completed. And so now, in Joshua chapter 12, we see a little bit of a recounting of the victories in regard to the kings that had been defeated. All right, it says, Joshua chapter 12, verse 1, "These are the kings of the land whom the Israelites had defeated and whose territory they took over east of the Jordan. Sihon, king of the Amorites, Og, the king of Bashan," and it goes on. And it says in verse 6, "Moses, the servant of the Lord, and the Israelites conquered them. And Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave their land to the Reubenites, the Gadites, the half-tribe of Manasseh to be their possession." And so these were the victories that took place early on while Moses was still in leadership. Now, of course, the transition happens to Joshua, and verse 7 says, "These are the kings of the land that Joshua and the Israelites conquered on the west side of the Jordan." And then it goes on and gives a description of that territory and then a list of kings. And it just starts listing them out one by one. The king of Jericho, the king of Ai, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, and on and on and on and on. Just listing king after king till the very last verse of Joshua chapter 12, verse 24, the king of Tirzah, 31 kings in all. And so it's just this big list, this big accounting of the history of how the battle for the promised land turned out and the kings that were defeated. And so we see this, and it might be easy to just read that and see that and just kind of give a nod to the historical record and say, you know, it's important, valuable to record it for that purpose and for that reason, to see how it played out and to understand the historicity of it. And that's good, and that's true, that's valuable. But I want to suggest to you that there's one little key truth that we might glean from this that I think is really vital and really important for us, and I think is really quite beautiful in its truth. And to get there, I want to take you to 1 Samuel chapter 8. Okay, so this is much later in history, after Joshua and the conquest of the land. After he passes off the scene, of course, we go into the time period of the judges, and that's where there is not a clear leader over the land like there was with Moses and Joshua. These different judges kind of rise up and have some authority and rule in the land and try to help the nation move forward. But largely it's a difficult time. It's a time where people do what is right in their own eyes, as it gets repeated in the book of Judges many times. And so it's a challenging period. It's a challenging period of transition for the people. Now, by the time we get to 1 Samuel, this young boy had been dedicated to the service of the Lord, this young boy named Samuel. And he grew up in the temple, and he grew up in the service of the Lord, and he became a godly man, and he ultimately becomes priest over Israel, and he assumes some of these roles as the judge of Israel as well. And so his time, though, is coming to a close in 1 Samuel chapter 8, and this is what happens. 1 Samuel 8, verse 1. When Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons as judges for Israel. The name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second was Abijah, and they served at Beersheba. But his sons did not walk in his ways. Okay? They turned aside after dishonest gain and accepted bribes and perverted justice. So all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. And they said, "You are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have." But when they said, "Give us a king to lead us," this displeased Samuel. And so he prayed to the Lord. And the Lord told him, "Listen to all the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king." Okay? And so this is the thing I want to get to. Okay? It comes about where the nation, the people are asking for a king. And Samuel's discouraged about it. He feels like somehow he's blown it, somehow he has failed. And the Lord says, "No, it's not you. It's not you they've rejected. They've rejected me. They've rejected me as their king. And now they want to find some man to fill that role that I wanted to fill, that I wanted to carry out in the life of my people." And so when we go back to Joshua chapter 12, I want to suggest to you something, that as Joshua conquers all these kings, and as these kings are listed one by one by one by one, it is not just a mere record of victories and the historical conquest of the land and the kings that were defeated. It is a list of all these kings that have been defeated by the Lord, who is a warrior, who fought for the people, who gave them these victories. It is a list of these kings so that we might acknowledge that there is one true king, and it is the Lord. And the people needed to know that. They needed to know that he was the king, and he wanted to lead them, and he wanted to direct them, and he wanted to fight their battles. And that is the great and beautiful truth of Joshua chapter 12. And for us, we can simply bring that into our own life and say, you know what? Am I doing what the Lord wanted them to do? Am I really living, truly living, as if the Lord is my king? As if I follow him? As if his rule is all that matters? Am I subjecting all the details, all the areas, all the issues of my life to the Lord as my king, and letting him reign and rule and direct and fight for me? That's what he wants to do. Let him do it. Let him be the king, because he is the king, the one and only. Have a great day, men.